that correct? All right, got a thumbs up. He is the author of The Butterfly, book 1 in an epic fantasy series, Yetzirah, The Pocket Worlds and Altered Visions, a collection of short stories. Her fiction has appeared in Alien Skin magazine, Space and Time, Visions, and has been read on Golden Hours Radio. She is a former editor of the speculative fiction magazine, Nanobison. Nanobison? Never heard of it. And currently serves as marketing director of the Northwest Independent Writers Association. As P.J. Cowan, she has authored 2 thrillers, Something in the Dark and Cold Kill. Pam has 2 grown children and an incredibly supportive husband, 7 computers, 2 dogs, and a cat who rules them all. She lives in Oregon. Come on up.
Tough act to follow. Sort of like, hey, I'm not as tall as you. What was that? I'm not taller than. Tanya's sort of eloquent and sort of, I was thinking like Brandy, and I'm kind of like a shot of 501, 151. Right here? More? Like, oh gosh, I hate this. Okay. So, but it does kind of hide you, doesn't it? Yeah. So, we're focusing tonight on my collection of short stories. And like Brad, I am a nerd, total nerd. Love science, hate what science fiction does to women. Makes us all victims, makes us weak and whiny, except for Brad's book, which is a huge exception. Thank you, Brad. So I wrote this book because I wanted to depict women in science fiction genres as not victims, as tough women. I even redesigned the cover of the Boxer. It's my new cover because it's a little corny. So, well, the toughest woman in this book is a tiny little woman because tough doesn't have anything to do with size. I think we know that. So, I'm very nervous. I'm not sure why. I think it's because Adam's falling asleep. Adam, wake up. This is really uncomfortable. Okay, so let me just start with the cover story. I'm going to read a couple little pieces out of there, and again, it's a little bit more abrupt, sort of a style than Tanya. So we'll see how we go. This really feels like it's in my eyeball. Is there something I can do to make it better?
You're fine.
It hurts. Okay. All right. Sorry. I woke up because Godgirl's cough was worse. No wonder, since the house we were staying in had a leaky roof and no heat. The walls were spongy with water, and black mold climbed halfway up them. I don't think I've had worse accommodations. Excuse me. And considering where I've traveled, that's saying a lot. Someone had tacked thick sheets of clear plastic across the windows, probably trying to keep out the cold and wet, but all they'd accomplished was to darken the feeble gray light even more. I was lying there feeling sorry for myself, listening to the percussion of raindrops falling in buckets and jars, and trying to persuade myself to climb out of my warm blankets and check on Godgirl, when the door slammed open. What is it with apprentice trainers? I've yet to meet one who isn't loud with authority and sick with ego. Maybe it's the has-been or want-to-be that infects them. Whatever it is, I want no part of it. And I've long since earned the right to ignore them. I turned over, trying to do just that, ignore him, find sleep. It was not to be. The apprentice stomped up to Godgirl's bed and yelled, "Rise and shine, sweetheart. Time to go. You're up in an hour." This drew a groan from both of us. I turned back over and opened my good eye. She's in no shape to fight, I said. She's sick. I gestured toward her flushed face. He was too dumb to be expected to notice the obvious. He gave me a nasty grin and said, "Thanks, Karen. They'll take that into consideration when they figure the odds. Good tip." Godgirl moaned and tried to sit up. I beat her to it, swinging my legs over the side of my bed and hunching against the sudden cold. "I'll do it. I'll fight for her. Leave her alone." "You can't fight. You're a mess. You can barely see." I touched my swollen eye and blinked at the stabbing pain. "Yeah. Well, they'll take that into consideration when they figure the odds." So, a short time later, Karen steps into the ring. And this is or at least what serves as a ring in this post-apocalyptic world that they're in. My opponent was Brenda, a dark-skinned woman I'd fought before. She was led forward by her trainer. The call to begin rang out. Brenda and I faced each other, touched gloves, touched foreheads. "Luck to you, sister," she mouthed. "And to you," I replied in the traditional way. Then I got my hands up as she swung a nasty right that bounced off my forearm and grazed my ear. I moved back fast while she advanced, but she was cocky and overstepped, swung wide. I moved in, preferring to keep in close, and swung a left to her face that she blocked easily, while dropping her own left to my side. I slapped it down and away. I'd wanted a quick fight, wanted desperately to show Captain my worth, but Brenda was too much my equal. Back and forth across the ring we hit and blocked. She tried to sweep my legs out from under me. Kicking was illegal, but tripping was not, and with her longer legs she had an advantage. I wobbled back, losing my balance for a moment, just long enough for her to tap my bad eye. The cut tore and blood began to flow, blinding me on that side. Fear of losing pumped adrenaline through my body. Growling through my clenched teeth, I leaned into her, forgot about blocking, forgot about pain, and swung with all I had at her midsection. She deflected the first 3 blows, but the fourth got through, took the wind out of her. I followed with an uppercut to her jaw that snapped her teeth together and her head back. Followed that with a fierce pop to her ear, and she slid to her knees, tears coursing down her face. She leaned into me, protecting herself, running out the bell. I swung a roundhouse punch with every bit of strength I had behind it, my fist slamming into the side of her head, knocking her to the ground where she hit the asphalt with an ugly sound. So a little bit later in the story, Karen is now, who's the main character, is now talking to Captain, who holds her contract, about an ex-boyfriend who has just re-entered her life. "You think a governor's son wants you? Are you crazy? Don't you know what he did? He bet on you to lose, and the odds were in your favor. You know how much money you just put in his pocket?" "He said I could be his wife." He gasped and sat down next to me. "Really let him get in your head, didn't you? Baby, I'd almost feel sorry for you if you weren't acting so damn stupid, and if you hadn't just cost me most of the year's earnings." I thought, "Yeah, I know what you thought, but you gotta make this right by me. I can't pretend you didn't just screw me." "What can I do?" I asked. He looked me up and down. "You got another fight in you?" I thought about it. My ribs hurt, but it was a dull ache. Not the stabbing pain you get from a break. I couldn't see out of my bad eye, but the other one was fine. I actually didn't feel that bad. Tomorrow would be another story, but right now I was okay. A few minutes to catch my breath and I'd be good to go. "I can fight," I told him. "But can you win?" "I can win." "Good. Your boyfriend will probably want to see you. I'll let him in. Tell him you're going to fight one more time and that I told you to lose. He'll bet against you and maybe I can get some of my money back. Just one thing though, Karen." "Yeah?" "You'd better win." So, sorry about the nerves. I'm usually the joking one, so I don't know where the nerves are coming from. The next story I'd like to read from is Harbingers, which is my most popular story. It's dystopic and disturbing and dark, and I don't know why people love it so, but there you maybe someone can tell me later. Harbingers. I remember sitting on the dock with Lindsay one long afternoon after the world ended. Like 2 girls on vacation, we dangled our feet above the water, admiring the rusting sides of the fleet which had come in but would never go out again. It was probably the echo of old ghost stories, ships haunted by missing passengers or lost somewhere in a triangle off Bermuda, that led me to talk about my mom. She was from the old country, I told Lindsay, full of strange superstitions and fears. She told me once that ravens are prophets, the harbingers of bad news. She said if you see one circle a house 3 times, someone living there will die within the year. A few years later at a hippie fair, a shaman selling crystals and psychedelic mushrooms told me she was mistaken. He explained that ravens do bear messages, but they're usually benign. It's the crows who are the tricksters. The crows are the ones who have aligned themselves with dark forces. So enough of this thing. For some reason it's making me wiggy. I think because I've never read from this before. So my novel, however, Something in the Dark, my friend Annie back there told me that I should tell you guys that we were having a conversation one day, and I said, well, I'm getting pretty old. I don't really want to write romance. I don't really care about sex. Sorry, honey. What I really, really like is to kill people. So I did. This is a story about a gal. It's based on a sort of a true place that I lived in Offenbach, Germany, that had an old bomb shelter in the basement. And I used to, when I was a little kid, we used to play near it. It was wired open, so if a kid got in, they wouldn't get trapped. I used to think, what if someone did get in there and the door shut? So that's the premise for this book. And in the very beginning, the 7-year-old girl, her brother, rotten little brother, and older brother, and his friend have succeeded in getting the door to close, and she's trapped inside. After a while, once her heart had slowed and her sobs had subsided to an occasional hiccup, she began to hear something. It was a very small noise. She only seemed able to catch it in between breaths. She held her breath to see if she could hear it. Yes, there it was. It sounded like someone breathing. Her eyes flew wide with alarm. She took a long but shallow breath and held it. She heard it again. Someone was breathing. Someone or something was in here with her. Maybe it had always been here, hiding in the shadows where the light couldn't reach. Maybe it was a man, the man who made that girl dead. Maybe it was a big rat. Her brother had a fake rubber rat. It was creepy with its long, naked, whippy tail and its fat, pointy teeth. He was always throwing it on her lap so she would jump up and yell. Rats will eat your face off, he told her, bite off your nose and eat your eyeballs. She put her hands over her face. From her small, strained throat came tiny, broken whimpers. No, they won't, her mom had told her. Your brother's teasing you. But Mom's lied. Mom's told you shots didn't hurt, and if you're nice to him, your brother won't pick on you, and your dad will be home in time to tell you a bedtime story. Still, she would give anything if her mom would come soon, but her mom didn't. So, this is the story about this woman, and she's 26 when the story actually, or the novel starts, and she's dealt very well with the being afraid of the dark thing. She owns a plant nursery. She works outdoors most of the time. She's also afraid of being in confined spaces. But she has an anxiety attack, and every time she has an anxiety attack, somebody dies. So we got to figure out why, and this is a mystery, and so we don't know until the very end. But so at this point in the book, a murder has occurred at her place of business, the plant nursery, and there's a store there. And the police have allowed her to return. It's nighttime. Excuse me, it's nighttime and she's just gone back there. Yellow tape still dangled from one corner of the potting shed. The wind picked it up and wound it like a thin scarf around a stack of ceramic pots. Austin, hunched inside her coat, hurried past. So then it starts to snow, and like a lot of us that don't think we're being noticed, she's kind of whirling around in the snow and got her tongue stuck out, and she's catching snowflakes and doing that thing we do. And then she realizes she's having a good time. And if any of you have lost someone close to you, you know that the first time you have a good moment after a death, you feel very guilty. So she goes in and decides to get herself to work and not have a good time. So she put together a pile of receipts to copy and filled out her quarterly tax statement. It's a bit of a horror story here. She was pleased. She was pleased with how much easier it seemed than last time. Maybe she could learn not to totally hate the accounting stuff. She was just finishing up when a noise outside startled her. She jerked upright and swiveled around on the stool she'd been using. What was that? This time she recognized the sound. Footsteps. Someone was walking across the parking lot, footsteps crunching through the gravel. She'd closed the stock gate behind her when she drove in. She knew the big close sign they'd hung on the gate was still there. So who would be walking up to the store, and how did they get in? A sharp memory of Bunny flashed through Austin's mind. Bunny arched across sacks of peat moss, her eyes sunken holes in her pale face, the disturbing line of the trowel buried in her throat. Austin swallowed hard and looked around for a weapon. Lying on the counter near the register was one of the utility knives they used to open boxes. Her fingers trembled as she fumbled to pick it up. It was small, with a slim plastic handle and a narrow, razor-sharp blade that retracted. It didn't look like much of a weapon, but she knew from experience it could cut deeply and painfully. Of course, cutting herself by mistake was one thing. Cutting another human being was something entirely different. A dark, wide-shouldered form loomed into sight just outside the sliding glass doors. Abruptly, the door slid open. Oh. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. So I have these two books here tonight, and I also have Yetzirah, which is an epic fantasy, and they're bundled, so you can get a good deal on those. And thank you for putting up with me.